Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 5 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Council. If you're able, please rise and join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would our clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Dish,
Here.
Councilmember Harrison,
Here.
Councilmember Song,
Here.
Councilmember Watson,
Here.
Councilmember Radina,
Here.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin, absent. Mayor Taylor,
Here.
Councilmember Iyer, absent. Councilmember Ackman,
Here.
Councilmember Briggs, absent. Councilmember Cornell,
Here.
we have a quorum.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Ackman, seconded by Councilmember Cornell. Discussion of the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. We have communications today from our city administrator.
No, thank you.
We do have one introduction today, that being the communication from the chair of our Independent Community Police Oversight Commission, Chair Carter. Chair Carter, you are online and you have the con.
Good evening. Mayor Taylor, members of council, Madam Clerk.
Chair Carter, you are inaudible.
My mic, oh, wait a minute.
Can you hold on for a quick set?
Sure.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Just a second, please. Can you give it a try now?
Can you hear me now?
You bet we can. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Mayor Taylor, council members, and Madam Clerk. It's good to be with you on this first Monday in Black History Month. Here at ICPOC, we have our committees working. We have our training committee, our police policy review committee, and we have, of course, our information managers who continue to review complaints. And I'm happy to report that we are up to date now with our complaint review. I am also happy to report that so far in 2024, ICPOC has not received any citizens' complaints regarding the police department, and we have not been informed that the department has any complaints that they have not yet informed us about. With regard to our outreach committee, we are planning our next public forum for our March meeting. That'll be the fourth Tuesday in March. And at that time, we'll be inviting the new chief of police to dialogue with the public. We're inviting the public in. This public forum, as was our last, is going to be held at the Peace Neighborhood Center. And of course, we hope that as many of you as can will join us. And we are inviting the public to come out and join us in that fourth Tuesday in March. We are in the process of finalizing our annual report for 2023. In keeping with our bylaws, and as I'm sure you know, our bylaws say specifically we are to provide the community with a role in recommending policies and practices that ensure a high quality of police service. When we do send you our report, we'll be making several recommendations in that report. Some of those recommendations are also in keeping with our mandate to work with the department to encourage the respectful treatment of all persons without undue force. This concern is of special significance with respect to segments of the community that are vulnerable and have been marginalized. That's part of our charge. And you know, we believe that this is a fundamental issue. Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And we think that's important because so many of our complaints have to do with citizens who felt that they were in some way disrespected in their contact with a police officer, that the officer was rude or in some other way disrespectful. And so we will be recommending more training for our officers and ongoing training so that they are fully aware that they can make a difference as to how people feel in police interactions. One of the specific recommendations that we're making has to do with traffic stops. And of course, because of the new ordinance that you have approved, we expect fewer traffic stops. But we are asking that the policies be amended so that when an officer, and we hear this time and time again from citizens in the community, when an officer makes a traffic stop, we are asking that the first thing that they do is introduce themselves and tell the citizen why they are being stopped. I may have told you this story before. It's very short, but in case I have not, I'm going to tell it again. My husband and I last year were traveling, and we were in another state visiting relatives. We had a relative's car, and we were out. We took it that evening and went to the store. On the way back, it was getting dark, and as we're driving, we saw the police lights behind us. And of course, we were unnerved. You know, what did we do wrong? We pulled over. The officer went up to the driver's window. My husband rolled down the window, and the officer said, "Hello, my name is Officer so-and-so. I'm with the Henderson Police Department, and I stopped you because the tags on your plate were expired." That set the tone for that encounter, and of course relieved a lot of our anxiety for having been stopped. So that's one of the recommendations that we're going to be making, and we're going to we're looking forward to working with the new chief, and we will have you our report and recommendations as soon as possible. If there are no questions, that is the ICPOC report for tonight.
Thank you, Chair Carter. We now come to public comment reserve time. Public comment reserve time is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment reserve time, one needs to have signed up in advance by contacting our city clerk. Speakers in all instances will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so whether you are here or are online, please pay close attention to the time. You will be notified when 30 seconds are remaining, either by the timer up front or by our clerk if you're online. When your 3 minutes have expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. We do have 16 members of the public who have signed up for public comment. Our rules provide that we will listen to public comment. We will have public comment for up to 45 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. And so if the first 15 conclude in under 44 minutes and 59 seconds, then lucky number 16 will have the pleasure of listening to them as well. Our first speaker is Ralph McKee.
Good evening, Ralph McKee, 5th Ward. I'd like to start by expressing thanks to the 4 council members, Iyer, Briggs, Radina, and Ackman, for having the spine to shut down the Sports Illustrated Resort, and hope council will create a transparent process for unsolicited proposals on city properties and re-engage the public Ray the Klein lot. But there's a lot to learn, Ray: secrecy, transparency, and trust. This process went on behind the scenes far too long, wasting dozens of staff hours and tens of thousands in lawyer fees. The public only found out via FOIA. The comments made by those voting down the resolution in October made little sense. Like, for example, the mayor and Councilmember Cornell saying any developer could make another proposal. In reality, no developer would do that when the SI proposal was far along and being championed by the city administrator. The comment made about use of time, that might waste, ignored the wasted time that actually happened. Councilmember Dish's saying let's wait for a site plan is tone deaf as to valuing early public engagement on issues as important as this. Next, his emails show Mr. Dohoney split council sessions in September to avoid Open Meetings Act. Denying it doesn't change that. Claiming to not know about public support for affordable housing, there is either dissembling or admitting to not caring about public opinion. That's maybe worse. Next, the second presentation to you in November shouldn't have been done entirely in closed session. I'm betting there was factual content which wasn't legal advice. Why hide behind the privilege curtain? That point leads me to Bruce Laidlaw's FOIA lawsuit re the use of the housing millage on the Y lot. The case got dismissed, some say frivolous. It wasn't. I read the briefs, I watched the hearing. I'm astonished. The city attorney argued the request for bond texts was vague and asked the court to make Laidlaw file a more specific request. Really? The city attorney and bond counsel can't get out the file and produce non-privileged documents like the indentures and the prospectus? Why hide them? Maybe they don't show what you want them to show. That's classic bad faith stonewalling a la Nixon and Trump. It's shameful. And the judge didn't even address the argument that using the millage funds the way you approved was illegal and voided the privilege. She didn't say one word on that topic. Strange, and I hope he appeals. Finally, my second topic, CA 11 shows that our best value policy needs work. Fonson bid more than $1 million lower than DePonio, roughly 15%, $1 million, and scored as well or better on everything except workforce development. Is whatever DePonio is doing better than Fonson in that category really worth $1 million on a single project? The scoring system really ought to be looked at again. That $1 million could be used, for example, on affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kathy Griswold. Ma'am, can you please keep your, Ms. Griswold, hold please. Ma'am, can you please move your sign way out of the aisle so that we're not blocking the aisle for people? Ma'am, can you please move your sign so that you're not blocking the aisle? Thank you very much.
Good evening. I too wanted to speak about CA 11, which is the contract. I won't repeat what's already been said, but I really think that we need to reassess best value because the public voted on this, and I believe the intention was to have unionized workers doing our projects. We're paying a premium for unionized workers. We can call it the apprenticeship program, but we all know that union contractors have apprenticeship programs, and in general, non-union employers do not. So we're paying a premium, but what's happening is the union company has the opportunity to subcontract with a non-unionized company. So if we're going to pay a premium for unionized workers, we need to get unionized workers. And so let's reassess this program and determine whether we can tighten it up or we need to evaluate it in another way. Thanks. My other topic is about communications and transparency. I believe the whole SI project was very painful, more painful for some people than others, but I hope it was a learning opportunity. We need to communicate better, all of us, including myself, and not about SI, but about the King School crosswalks. Now, this has been going on for many, many months, and this right here is a plat map, and I have taken the liberty to actually color in the public walkways. I provided the city with one of these about a year ago, and it was lost. So I went down to the county, and I got another one today. So I just want to conclude, and I will give this to the clerk so that it can be given to the legal department again. Let's all work together. Let's have a dialogue. Let's not wait months to get back to me or for me to get back to you. We need to improve pedestrian safety. Hoboken, New Jersey has gone 7 years now with their Vision Zero program, 7 years without a pedestrian fatality. We can do the same thing, and we need to up our game. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Jevons. Thank you.
Ms. Jevons is on the phone. Phone number ending in 926. Caller, you can go ahead. Press *6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. My name is Lisa Jevons. I live in the 3rd Ward. I'm speaking tonight to ask you to fund a Phase 2 electric utility feasibility study. This would be the follow-up to the first study that was done last year, and it's the necessary next step on our way to public power, which I firmly support. We need to continue to explore the possibility of replacing DTE because the for-profit utility model no longer works for Ann Arbor. As we all know, DTE's main obligation is to its shareholders because it's a monopoly. It doesn't have to care about its paying customers who have no one else to turn to for electricity. This system is wrong, and we don't have to live with it anymore. Despite DTE's terrible reliability, its power is also more expensive than almost any other major utility in the entire Midwest. And even though DTE is a state-regulated monopoly, every 2 years or so, the state allows it to increase our rates, just like it did in December. I know that DTE has announced vague plans to upgrade our grid, but given the incentive structure it operates under, I do not trust it. And even if it does, it will be at our expense anyway, with higher and higher rates. As every Ann Arborite knows from experience, DTE's grid is a disaster. It's not just a major inconvenience, it's actually a safety issue. For example, last year I was approaching the intersection of Washtenaw and Hill Street by the Rock after dark. The power had just gone out for absolutely no reason, and so did the street lights and the traffic lights. There was a big crash right in front of me with many pedestrians in the area, and had I arrived there 1 minute earlier, it could have been me. It doesn't have to be this way. When I look at the positive results in other cities like Holland and Lansing, which have public utilities, I know that would better serve us here too. This public utility model has worked very well for 41 other Michigan communities. Simply put, they enjoy better reliability at lower cost because they are only accountable to their own city residents. I'd like you all to imagine a world where our electric bills are not paying for Zambonis at college hockey rinks. Instead of a company sending tens of millions of our dollars in annual profits each year to investors, CEOs, and politicians, that money could be invested where it belongs, in our grid. I just want to remind you that funding a second study isn't a decision to municipalize. It just means that we want to fully investigate the costs and risks for ourselves.
30 seconds.
We owe it to our city to at least do that much. It's a good investment. And I think a Phase 2 feasibility study would give us a clear picture of what a DTE-free future would look like in Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker. Thank you. Our next speaker is Justin Schaff.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor and council members. I'm Justin Schott. I teach energy justice at U of M and lead an initiative called the Energy Equity Project. I've spent more than 15 years working to address the DTE shortcomings, and none of those has moved the needle. Initially, I was skeptical about municipal power, but after years of research, I've come around and seen that almost all of the municipalization campaigns result in carbon reductions, financial benefits, and improved reliability. I support the work of Ann Arbor for public power and the need to fund a Phase 2 feasibility study. The city estimated that last winter's ice storm, which kept my daughter out of school for 6 days, and maybe yours too, cost our local government $2 million. The fire department stated that, quote, it had no means of emergency communication with DTE. During both events, DTE's primary reporting phone number, public safety online portal, and emergency call number were offline or ineffective. I want to emphasize just how far outside of acceptable behavior and basic performance standards DTE stands, even compared to its investor-owned peers. During the height of the pandemic, DTE resumed shutoffs much faster than any other Michigan utility, quickly reaching more than 10,000 per month, which landed it on the Hall of Shame, a national list of the 12 worst offenders. At the same time, enrollment in DTE's affordable payment plans has been cut by half. DTE has an excellent track record of punishing people who live in poverty. DTE is the only utility in Michigan that sold its customers' debt to a third-party collection agency at less than 2 cents per dollar and removed 1,400 streetlights in a majority black city in Highland Park. Prior to last February's ice storm, DTE disclosed that it had cut $124 million in maintenance expenses, but it did manage to make $700 million in dividend payments to investors and then turned around to request $622 million in rate increases from its customers. The math has never added up. DTE manipulates the system that is supposed to regulate its monopoly by pouring tens of millions into dark money campaigns and direct contributions to political candidates. DTE consistently opposes the solutions we need in Ann Arbor, like community solar, and misrepresented black and brown-led nonprofits as opposing solar without their knowledge or consent. Even among its peers, DTE is a rogue utility, and the consequences to we the people have been even worse than we could have imagined. If DTE were not a monopoly and had to submit a proposal to work with the city, I'm confident that you would reject it for a slew of environmental, ethical, financial, and performance-related grounds. DTE does have an existing contract, and it's failing. At the very least, we owe it to the Ann Arbor community to do our due diligence and understand our full options for getting out of this insidious relationship. Please fund the Phase 2 feasibility study. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Catherine Plotner.
Hello, my name is Catherine Plotner, and I'm a junior at Skyline High School. As I'm sure all of you know, we are in a state of emergency. The climate is being destroyed, and fossil fuels and carbon emissions have not stopped. My lives and the lives of my classmates are defined by this emergency. We know that unless steps are taken right now to make the climate much, much better than it is, to stop carbon emissions, we will inherit a broken and destroyed world. We don't want this. Ann Arbor has declared a climate emergency. I urge all of you to take a step right now towards a greener future for me and all of my classmates, for everyone. Approve the Phase 2 feasibility study so that we can make a municipal utility. Municipal utilities provide the best path towards clean energy, energy that is 100% renewable. DTE has rejected to take the necessary steps towards renewable energy because they're too focused on turning a profit. We must focus on people. People in Ann Arbor who are freezing in their homes as the climate is destroyed by the same people who keep their power off, who prevent them from having heating. As people around the world suffer from hurricanes and forest fires, we have waited for far too long. Our house is on fire, but you, councilors of Ann Arbor, have the power to take a step right now towards a green future. Approve the Phase 2 feasibility study. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ken Garber.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Ken Garber, 2nd Ward. The broken and destroyed world that Ms. Plotner just eloquently described is one that she inherited from my generation. I can only hope that it's not too late for us to make up for this terrible legacy. Well, feasibility studies, we've learned 2 things about them. 1, they're expensive, and 2, they're extremely boring. But they're also necessary, including a Phase 2 study. That's not just my view. Your Phase 1 consultants agree. Here's what they wrote, quote, "We suggest that the city authorize a Phase 2 feasibility study to characterize more precisely the costs and risks of the MEU approach." MEU standing for Municipal Electric Utility, or MUNI for short. Some of you may favor the SEU, as I certainly do, but not the MUNI. Again, from the report, quote, "The SEU option is financially feasible, less risky, and serves the 820 energy criterion principles well, but likely has less long-term potential than the MEU to advance the 820 goals," end quote. It then recommends doing the SEU and the MUNI at the same time because the MUNI is a better climate solution, even though it will take longer. So for that, we need Phase 2. I realize that New Gen's estimated $300,000 to $500,000 Phase 2 price reported at your September 26 meeting is not in the city's current general fund budget. But I remind you that 7 of us spoke at the May 1st budget public hearing for a $250,000 budget placeholder for Phase 2. Okay, we were a little bit low on that, but we were in the ballpark. You preferred to wait and see what Phase 2 said. Well, that study is in, and it recommends Phase 2. Though you didn't set aside the money when we asked, I'm confident you can find it now, maybe from the $7 million the city receives annually from the climate millage, but that part is up to you. I've looked at the A2P2 Ann Arbor Public Power scope of work proposal, and they've done a good job addressing the questions council posed on September 26th. You asked for estimates for the cost of upgrading the infrastructure and the cost of litigation to see the process through to completion, plus more legal work around the issue of stranded costs. All those and more are in A2P2's proposal. So I think you've got everything you need to move forward with Phase 2. We can adopt the same schedule specified for the unarmed crisis response, RFP by March, proposal by July, contract by September. Remember, boring can be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Greg Woodring.
Thank you, Council. My name is Greg Woodring. I'm the president of Ann Arbor for Public Power. I live at 1012 West Cross, and I'm here, like so many others today, to ask you to pursue a Phase 2 feasibility study. Just a few reminders about the Phase 1 study findings. For one, the Phase 1 study concluded pretty conclusively that without a municipal utility, there is no path to 100% renewable power in the city without the purchase of RECs. Those RECs are estimated at about $8 to $20 million per year. Furthermore, one of the major concerns that came out of the Phase 1 study was the concern that it may take longer than our 2030 goal. Well, that is to be seen. There is one thing that we have control over in terms of the timing of how this goes, and that is how long we take until we take the next steps. Pursuing a Phase 2 feasibility study quicker rather than taking longer will accelerate the timeline to us reaching a full municipal utility. We hope that you follow the recommendation of the Phase 1 feasibility study from the contractors that recommended that you pursue this. We understand that there are concerns about the cost of municipalizing. The Phase 1 study absolutely did outline a very wide range of potential costs for acquiring DTE's assets and establishing a municipal utility. On the high end, it very likely is financially unfeasible. However, on the low end, it is estimating about a 10% drop in our electrical bills day one that will continue to decrease. That is a huge upside for the people of Ann Arbor, and it would be wrong to not pursue an option that could result in incredible reliability increases, decreases in our costs of our electricity, as well as allowing us to truly and actually reach our climate goals. There have been over 200 emails sent to you over the last few weeks asking you to pursue this study. For the estimated cost from the contractors of $300,000 to $500,000, you would be able to get this study. While that sounds like a lot of money, likely to you and me, in terms of the city budget, that is very small. The city has upwards of $500 million in revenue. They have a $134 billion general discretionary fund. We're talking about less than 1/2 of 1% of the fund in order to pay for this study. It is an equivalent amount of money as what you are currently considering proposing to spend on golf equipment. So we really hope that you will pursue this next step and fully investigate this really beneficial option for Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kathleen Murphy.
Ms. Murphy is on Zoom. Phone number, caller with the phone number ending in 245. Press *6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Hello, City Council members, Mayor Taylor, and attendees at this meeting. I'm Kathleen Murphy. I live at 315 Linda Vista Street in Ann Arbor. I'm calling to support a Phase 2 feasibility study for a municipalization electrical utility, a concept that is being advocated by the Ann Arbor for Public Power organization, which I also support. Since July 21, when the Ann Arbor Energy Commission first took up a resolution for a municipal electric utility feasibility study, Ann Arbor for Public Power and city staff have been considering the municipalization option and its promise of a cleaner, more reliable electricity supply. In September of 23, consulting firm Five Lakes Energy delivered its report entitled City of Ann Arbor 100% renewable energy options analysis. Among its conclusions was the following. We suggest that the city authorize a Phase 2 feasibility study to characterize more precisely the costs and risks of the municipal electric utility. Unquote. This was a quote that was quoted earlier by Ken Garber. The main objective of this Phase 2 study would be to arrive at a technically sound and legally defensible evaluation of DTE's local distribution assets in order to prepare for an acquisition of DTE's infrastructure. Its estimated cost would be between $300,000 and $500,000. To have a municipal electric utility in Muni, we have to have a Phase 2 feasibility study. It should include a more thorough and accurate examination and valuation of DTE's infrastructure, a legal analysis that provides a much more precise estimate of the cost of acquisition beyond the physical assets, opportunities to upgrade the system for improved reliability, and to incorporate renewable power generation. For those of us interested in having a municipal electric utility to replace a current investor-owned electrical utility, DTE, it is necessary to have a Phase 2 feasibility study. And I sincerely hope you can support this proposed study. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Guy Teschke.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Let me pull this off. My name is Gus Teschke. I live in Ward 5. I'm here tonight to ask Council to fund a Phase 2 feasibility study for a municipal electric utility as described in Ann Arbor for Public Power's recent proposal. The study would produce information that Council and voters need in order to make sound decisions on the future source of our electricity. And so that would answer some questions, but what do we already know? We know that a municipal electric utility is affordable. We could buy DTE's poles and wires and then upgrade them because we could finance it with municipal bonds, and our electric bills would pay off those bonds. No tax increase would be needed, unlike with other plans. That's what Winter Park, Florida did. They buried their wires, which is much more expensive than doing proper maintenance on poles and wires. and their bonds paid for the whole thing. We know that a municipal electric utility, such as Ann Arbor for Public Power proposes, is the only plan that can deliver 100% renewable power. We know that this utility could be completed close to 2030. Maybe 1 year to set up the utility legally, maybe 2 years in court to establish a price for DTE's poles and wires, maybe 1 year to put the price before the voters in a ballot initiative, and maybe 2 years to build the utility. That's about 6 years. That's about 2030. That's pretty good. We know that DTE's strongest incentive is to produce profits, even if it has to cut back on maintenance. We know this because DTE told us in an earnings call on February 23rd, 2023, during the big ice storm. You can look it up on their website. DTE's maintenance is really unacceptable, and we've experienced that many times. So we know that DTE must go. Any plan that includes DTE is a non-starter. We know that council needs to hear from all sides on this question, and I hope that the council will soon hold a town hall debate. We know that Ann Arbor for Public Power's proposal does not include offsets, such as the 8 to 20 million yearly in RECs that the city would have to purchase, as in another plan. In closing, I urge City Council to approve the Phase 2 feasibility study as described in Ann Arbor for Public Power's proposal, so we can get answers to the important questions raised in the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tamara Garwood.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor and Madam Clerk, City Administrator, council members, and of course all of the people here today in person and appearing by phone and by Zoom. My name is Tamara Garwood. I live in the 5th Ward, and I am the magistrate for the 15th District Court of Ann Arbor, and I have served in that position for 8 years for the city. I have lived here in Ann Arbor for 25 years, and I've been an attorney for 25 years as well. With the retirement of Judge Joseph Burke, there will be a vacancy in our court here in Ann Arbor, and I am running for that position with the support of my family, friends, colleagues, and community. The primary is in August, and the general election, of course, will be in November. My experience, knowledge, compassion, and integrity are on display every day as I sit on the bench here in the city of Ann Arbor. I review and sign search warrants, complaints, and arrest warrants for 14 different agencies in our local area. I conduct arraignments. I conduct trials on small claims matters. Impoundment cases, I handle informal hearings. When you get a parking ticket or you get a garbage ticket or the police pull you over for various reasons, you come to me. And either in person or in writing, we take care of your case. I handle sentencing on many misdemeanor matters as well. As most of you likely know, every day of the year we have court here in Washtenaw County, and that falls upon the magistrates of our county to appear for those court hearings on weekends and holidays. So every third weekend and holiday, I am off to the Service Center to conduct hearings on the most serious type of matters that we have, because we as a county do not leave people sitting in jail when we're available to take care of them. I also have the pleasure of officiating weddings, and I've done about 1,000 weddings in the city. I often handle hundreds of court matters in a single week. My commitment to justice is rooted in my deep belief in public service, much as yours. Protecting the rights of those before me is paramount, but yet never far from my decisions are the needs of the people of the city of Ann Arbor and those who come here.
Ma'am, do not interrupt speakers again, please.
And those who come here for work, education, medical care, and recreation. I've seen firsthand what I can do with a single court appearance. I can change the life of one of our citizens. With my compassion, judicial temperament, and experience of being on the bench, I see the difference I've made in our community. And I look forward to expanding that difference as the next judge of the 15th District Court. We have ballots here. If anyone is willing to sign, we have petitions here. If anyone's willing to sign those, I appreciate your support on a petition, and I welcome your signature and hopefully your vote as my campaign continues. Again, Tamara Garwood, and I'm running for 15th District Court Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Parnell McCarter.
Good evening. My name is Parnell. I'm here to speak about the feasibility study as well. One of the reasons why I would like to see Ann Arbor move away from DTE is that DTE has plans to continue using fracked gas for decades to come with no end in sight. Yale University has an online magazine from their School of Environment, and they have a good article about fracking that I'll just read some parts of. It says, a paper by the Yale School of Public Health this summer showed that children living near Pennsylvania wells that use fracking to harvest natural gas are 2 to 3 times more likely to contract a form of childhood leukemia than their peers who live farther away. That followed a Harvard study in January that found elderly people living near or downwind from gas pads have a higher risk of premature death than seniors who don't live in that proximity. It goes on to say, in April, the nonprofit Physicians for Social Responsibility and Concerned Health Professionals of New York published its most recent compendium of investigations into risks and harms linked with fracking. Since 2014, the compendium has tallied 2,239 peer-reviewed papers that found evidence of harm, with nearly 1,000 of those papers published since 2018. It goes on to say later, according to a 577-page document, 79% of U.S. natural gas and 65% of crude oil is now produced by fracking, with more than 17.6 million people living near within a mile of fracked oil or gas well. The result, says the report, is a public health crisis. Despite all of this evidence, DTE doesn't seem to have a problem with investing in gas for decades to come, no plans to ever get off of it. And I would like to see Ann Arbor totally remove itself from fracking, and having a municipal electric utility is a great way to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Blaine Coleman.
Thanks to Chairwoman Carter for reminding us that this is Black History Month. Malcolm X used to say, you notice they gave us the shortest month. We owe more than we can ever repay to Malcolm and to the black revolutionaries who he led. Malcolm was a constant reminder of the genocide that this government committed in the past and in the present, including the genocide of the Congo, which continues, the genocide against Vietnam, which killed millions of Vietnamese people, which this government is guilty of, including the genocide against the Palestinian people. Malcolm was the first major public figure that I ever heard of who wrote strongly and publicly against the mass murder of Palestinians, which Israel committed. That was in 1964 when nobody was talking about it here. Because of Malcolm and a few other black revolutionaries like Ethel Minor, like Stokely Carmichael, later known as Kwame Ture, and then the whole Black Panther Party, and then many more black revolutionaries. This is the only way that the Palestinian freedom movement ever reached the United States of America. Nobody would have known about it otherwise. There are many, many reasons that we owe Malcolm a big debt, and many reasons we owe all the black revolutionaries of the 1960s a big, big debt. Without them, we wouldn't know a damn thing about empire, about imperialism, and about the need to stop it. This city council, like the Richmond, California City Council, has a duty to approve a resolution against military aid to Israel. This city council, like the Minneapolis City Council, has a duty to approve a resolution against military aid to Israel. Do it. Don't wait for 200 people to come pouring in here. It took 200 people pouring into this city council chamber for this city council to even recognize that Palestinians are human beings. Took them a long time. Don't wait for 200 people to come in here again. Approve the resolution against military aid to Israel.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mojan Sarabia Safani.
Hello, Ann Arbor. It strengthens my heart to see students here who have come to support Palestinian human rights. It strengthens my will to fight back when I see students here who come with their heart open to humanity. Right now, as we speak, hundreds of trucks are held up outside of border with Gaza in Rafah. They're held up by Israeli military. They're not allowed in. A few feet inside, people are dying of hunger, starvation. Israel is using starvation as a means to annihilate people of Palestine. Israeli forces have made a complete ruin of Gaza. This city council barely signed a resolution for a bilateral ceasefire, which means nothing. After 200-300 people spent hours and hours here and pushed for this city council to recognize people of Palestine are human, and they should not be treated this way with the dollars that are poured into the pockets of those filthy genocidal maniacs of Israeli government. United States is right now spending billions of dollars on Ukrainian war, which they started and they pushed for it, and they are spending billions of dollars in Israel so that Israelis can continue to murder Palestinians. Is this the kind of people we want to be known to the world? Before this genocide, liberal Americans would ask, why do they hate us? What do you think now? Do you think the world is going to love you for the genocide that you enable month after month after month? No, I have news for you. The world hates you. They more than hate you. We want a full stop to the U.S. help for this genocide. We want to stop military aid to Israel. We want to see people who represent people of the United States to be humans, not monsters that they are right now. We can do that. We can vote you out, and we can vote in human beings, and we will. Fourth graders that are going to school right now in Ann Arbor will see a world without Israel. I promise you that. Israel is killing itself. While it's dying, it's going to murder a lot more people. But we can minimize that murderous state by not giving them the guns to shoot people. Free Palestine, and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Our next speaker is Tom Stolberg.
And shame on those of you who said nothing about Palestine. Shame on you.
Ma'am. Thank you.
Don't ma'am me.
Our next speaker is Tom Stolberg.
Mr. Stolberg is on Zoom. Phone number 534. Can unmute your phone. Press *6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
Good evening. This is Tom Stolberg calling from Lower Town in Ann Arbor. Number one, like the first speaker, I would like to publicly recognize 4 council members who came out publicly against the Sports Illustrated Resorts proposal. Council members Redina, Briggs, Ackman, and Iyer, thank you. Number 2, I recently sent you a brief letter in support of the Phase 2 feasibility study for municipal electric utility, and I echo the comments by other callers. Number 3, item CA3, the Leslie Science Nature Center. It's one of our local treasures. Please approve this expenditure. Item number 4, MC1. I am not making any specific accusations here. Rather, I was taught to believe that even the appearance of impropriety was to be avoided. I worked as a consultant for a large auditing firm. That is what they taught us. That company no longer exists because of improprieties. I worked for a small company that provided software to municipalities. Avoiding even the slightest appearance of impropriety was evident in that environment. When we had municipal employees into the office to give them a day-long sales demonstration, some would not even let us supply them with lunch. Seems like that wouldn't be a problem. No big deal. But some drew a line at absolute zero. No questions, no slippery slope, no doubt of impropriety even possible. Here are some facts. You decide by your vote tonight if there's no appearance of any impropriety. Dan Adams is nominated to serve on the city's planning commission. That body has quite a lot of responsibility, including the final vote on a lot of developments that no longer come to city council for a public hearing or vote because of recent threshold changes approved by city council. With our comprehensive plan revision underway, the planning commissioners will have a large part to play in a long-term impact on our city. Dan Adams recently donated $500 to the mayor's new political action committee. That PAC has already distributed $1,000 to Jen Ayer's re-election campaign, $750 to Erica Briggs' campaign, and $1,000 to Lisa Dish's campaign. In the last election cycle, Dan Adams' household was the 5th highest donor by a household to the mayor and the 5 council members on its slate, all of whom are now serving on city council. The top 4 household donors were 2 labor PACs and 2 households of the former owners of a local company who sold their company for a lot of money to a big company. Dan Adams' household was the largest donor to the mayor and his slate after those 4 household
30 seconds.
donors. These are facts. You decide if that passes the test for not having even the appearance of impropriety. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephen Beatty.
Caller with the phone number ending in 143. Press *6 to unmute your phone. Mr. Beatty, if you're on Zoom, press *6 to unmute your phone. Mr. Beatty, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry about that. So my name is Stephen Beatty. Thanks to the mayor, the council, and to everyone responsible for helping set the space aside for the voice of the public. And it's not directly related to any of the agenda items for tonight. The city may be hearing about it a bit already. But I also wanted to make a comment on the public power issue. So I'll try and keep it brief. I'm an Ann Arbor native and current resident, but I've also been a graduate student at the University of Delaware. I've had the privilege of living there and learning about these sustainable energy utility concepts directly from the lead policy researcher and the groups that produce the institutional design and subsequent feasibility analyses that you may have heard about, like in Delaware, but also in Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, and even Seoul, South Korea. So just for the SU Phase 1 that the city is currently considering, the only context that even Phase 1 has actually been tried is then in municipal context, where it's actually produced impacts at a large scale. In the coming months, if you guys hear more about alternative structures that might be feasible for supporting traditional municipalization in the Ann Arbor context, I hope you'll remain open to it because I believe that it'll probably be significantly helpful, even for distribution system access for the SU Phase 1, and especially for the development projects planned for SU Phase 2. So yeah, thank you. Sorry for the connection trouble, and appreciate the patience.
Thank you. We have had public comment for 45 minutes, we have one public speaker left, which will be available for speaking at public comment overflow after the balance of the meeting has been processed. Are there communications today from council? Councilmember Song.
So I'd like to speak to the Sports Illustrated proposal as it was presented last week and the city's propensity to protect parking lots so that they remain as parking lots, park in perpetuity, or be reimagined in a number of ways, thankfully, increasingly and more pressingly as contributing much-needed housing supply. In this reimagining, I hope we can directly confront the economic realities of downtown as small, locally owned businesses struggle outside the football season and art fairs, especially in light of more professionals working from home. So thank you, City Administrator Dahoney and Destination Ann Arbor for attempting to speak to the need for a downtown conference center that would be programmed in support of local arts, businesses, and visitors. We are the economic engine of the county, and we have a reputation as being welcoming to visitors. I think a lot of us experience the city in similar ways. I am not from Ann Arbor. My first experience was in 1992 to go to a U of M football game. I have not been back since. I will wear the team shirt, but I sold all of my tickets as a Model UN geek when I was an undergrad student. But I fully appreciate the full market value that sports can bring to the city because in the end, Ann Arbor is a home to freaks, geeks, and jocks. So when we revisit this idea of what to do with a parking lot, I hope we can be imaginative, collaborative, not prone to conspiracy theories, and actually have a result that can come to fruition within this lifetime. We cannot sit on parking lots in perpetuity. We cannot wait for the housing crisis to worsen. So, go blue.
Further communication from council. Councilmember Cornell.
I want to thank my council member colleague down there for saying some of exactly what I was going to say. Appreciate your words. So I'll use my time to talk about the Show Your Love for Main Street Small Business Crawl on Saturday, starting at 9 a.m. for most locations. There's 29 businesses, small businesses owned by our neighbors that are participating in this weekend. So please check it out. If you are going to be downtown, show some love for those small businesses. And if you want additional information, it is available at mainstreetannarbor.org. Thank you.
Councilmember Ackman.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of freaks, I wanted to use my time to recognize the death of Ann Arbor legend Wayne Kramer, co-founder and guitarist for the rock band MC5, who died this past weekend. MC5 stands for Motor City 5, and much to the chagrin of my Detroit-born husband, and I'm sure many Detroiters who are claiming them as his own, I'm going to claim him for Ann Arbor. This band was managed by John Sinclair, another notable person in the city's history. They thrashed their guitars in the garage on Hill Street and performed at West Park in the band shell in the late 1960s until the city shut it down. I was lucky enough to see him perform a couple of times over the last 20 years. You can learn a lot more about him in the Ann Arbor District Library archives. Lots of good pictures there. Rest in peace seems wholly inappropriate to say to someone who kicked out the Jam's mother, word I'm not going to say from the council table. So rest in power, Wayne Kramer. Thank you.
Councilmember Watson.
Thanks. As part of my ongoing commitment to constituent engagement, I'll be hosting a Ward 2 listening session on Sunday, February 18th at 3 p.m. at the Panera Bread at 3205 Washtenaw Ave, and I hope to see you there.
Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start by saying happy Black History Month. As a lifelong resident who went through the Ann Arbor public school system, I was deeply moved by the Jones School documentary that played yesterday at the Michigan Theater. It resonated with some of my own experiences navigating this city. As we celebrate Black History Month, let's acknowledge the legacy of educational desegregation efforts here in the city of Ann Arbor. Desegregation's impact was complex. While it challenged racial segregation, the closure of Jones School scattered students, busing them to distant, segregated neighborhoods. This decision had lasting consequences, contributing to the isolation and weathering experienced by many Black students. Imagine being the only or one of a few Black students in a predominantly white school, facing implicit biases and microaggressions daily. That constant stress takes a toll. Councilmember Chris Watson and I stand on the shoulders of giants like the Congress on Racial Equality, the NAACP, and the trailblazing Emma Wheeler. Their unwavering fight for desegregated schools mirrored the national civil rights movement. I want to acknowledge milestones like the appointment of former City Clerk Winnie Northcross and our current City Administrator Milton Dohoney Jr., signifying progress. Let us not forget the persistent need for diverse representation across all levels. Supporting Black leaders, both present and past, is crucial. We navigate complex systems, overcome historical biases, and face unique challenges as pioneers. Just like those isolated students, the pressure can be immense. But today, I am proud to say that our current council exemplifies how we can support local leaders. This council has been actively supporting legislation and policies that move Ann Arbor forward. In addition, I've seen how committed our staff is to moving forward with laying the groundwork for an even more inclusive Ann Arbor. But this isn't just about celebrating milestones, it's about building a future where equity thrives. Let's commit to amplifying the voices of Black residents in decision-making, investing in programs that support and empower Black leaders. Create inclusive spaces where everyone feels welcome and valued. By acknowledging the past, supporting present leaders, and working towards a more equitable future, we can honor the struggles of those who came before us and ensure that all residents of Ann Arbor can thrive. This is just the beginning. Let's keep the conversation going, take action, and build a community that truly lives up to its ideals. Thank you.
Further communication from council. I would like to request confirmation of the following appointments that were presented to City Council at the January 22, 2024 regular session. To the Transportation Commission, Lisa Campbell. To the Commission on Disability Issues, Lorraine Buis. To the Board of Review, Elizabeth Martin. To the Planning Commission, Daniel Adams. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Radina. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. Can you please keep the sign down? Thank you so much.
That's for you to know, children stand with Palestine. That's for you to know it.
I would also like to recommend the following nominations for your consideration to the Board of Review. Kurt Zell. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Radina, second by Councilmember Dish. Discussion of the consent agenda. Councilmember Radina.
I'd like to pull CA1, please.
Further discussion of the consent agenda. Councilmember Dish.
Sorry. I'd like to pull CA8.
Further discussion. Councilmember Ackman.
I just wanted to note a couple of things quickly on here. One, I'm very happy to support the Leslie Science Center, $250,000 that will be contributing towards a playscape, and also wanted to make note that they secured over $600,000 in funding for this project. A great community resource, as I think one of our public commenters already noted. I also wanted to speak quickly to CA11. I have the detailed scoring sheet, and I want people to know that we had 7 bids for this project. They ranged from $6 million to $8.8 million. The bid that's been put forward by staff, which is non-union, by the way, had the highest score based on criteria that's set by our policy. It was middle of the road in terms of price. In fact, there's 4 contractors, which are a mix of union and non-union, bids that are over $8 million. These bids are not scientific. They're put forth, they have contingency amounts attached to them. This one has $765,000 that can go over without council approval, and that tells you that we actually account for the fact that bids are not precise. We see requests for money on these types of contracts not infrequently. So I think, we should always ask how we can improve our policies and ask if they're having the intended outcome, but the public has specifically said they care more about factors other than just cost, and there are many dimensions of value, and the score sheet reflects that. I'm comfortable moving forward with the bid suggested by the city and by the highest score.
Further discussion? Councilmember Song.
I'll chime in and echo the sentiments on CA3 in support of the Leslie Science and Nature Center playscape. My family has contributed, but I think that it is one of several examples in our city where we know when there is enthusiasm around an actual park functioning as a park with private support. We can see that come to a reality pretty quickly. So we can see that at the skate park. We can see this at Leslie Science and Nature Center. We can see this at Gallup Park, where the Rotary Club came together and raised, I think, nearly $1 million to make that into a universal access park. So thank goodness for our park system and our love for parks in the city to actually be used as parks.
Further discussion? Councilmember Cornell.
I want to chime in also on Leslie Science and Nature Center. I was really impressed to read about the thoughtfulness that they've put into the playscape, especially around accessibility. I think this is going to be a huge benefit to our community, and I think it is the example of the type of park that we can be proud of here. So I'm enthusiastic to support it.
Further discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda with the exception of CA1, CA8, please say aye. Opposed? The consent agenda with the exception of CA1 and CA8 is approved with 8 council members present, all voting in the affirmative, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement with respect to CA3, CA4, CA5, CA9, CA10, and CA11. CA1, resolution to approve a construction contract with Palmar Enterprises, Inc. for the Huron West Park Sanitary Sewer Replacement Phases 2 and 3 in the amount of $8,483,440. Moved by Councilmember Radina, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of CA1. Councilmember Radina.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start by acknowledging Councilmember Iyer for flagging this contract and for initially digging into it. She and I have had a few conversations with staff about what we believe is an opportunity to create some additional clarity in our RFPs with respect to exactly what the city expects to receive when asking for documentation as to bidders' pay rates, health insurance, pension or other retirement benefits, paid leave, or other fringe benefits to its employees, and also the documentation that a bidder participates in a registered apprenticeship program. It's my understanding that both bidders on this project have little to no history for projects in Ann Arbor, bidding on projects in Ann Arbor, so there's likely a bit of a learning curve here with respect to our rigorous process. And when responding to those questions, Major Contracting responded that they are a signatory with the following union shops, and then they listed the unions, and that all pay, health insurance, pension, and retirement benefits are through the union. They also indicated that they participate in an apprenticeship program through the unions for their laborers and finishers. As Councilmember Iyer pointed out in our conversations, these agreements, as well as the pay scales and benefits, are public and can be found easily on the union websites that were indicated. And for this, it is easy for me to believe that Major Contracting likely thought that the information provided was sufficient to demonstrate that they quite clearly meet the criteria that we ask for under our best value contracting requirements. In this instance, the other contractor did not provide any information with respect to these two questions. And again, with credit to Councilmember Iyer for digging into this, OSHA's website indicates that they are non-union and no additional information is publicly available to suggest otherwise. For me, at least, it is quite clear that Major Contracting meets our best value contracting criteria. In fact, they have embraced as their business model the very things that we say we value as a city, but because they only provided a statement indicating their compliance instead of actually attaching the documents, they received 0 points toward their total score. As a result, they narrowly slipped behind the other bidder in scoring. So while I do have a little bit more to say, before moving further, I move to amend that resolution CA1 to approve the construction contract for Huron West Park Sanitary Sewer Replacement Phases 2 and 3 to change the contractor from Paymar Enterprises, Inc. to Major Contracting Group, Inc., and would ask that our clerk please circulate the proposed new language.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Dish. Is this amendment friendly to the body? Councilmember Medina, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned, Councilmember Iyer and I have already spoken with staff about clarifying this language in the future to make it as clear.
Yeah. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Point of order. Is what I interpreted what you were saying as a point of order. Carry on. Councilmember Medina, on the amendment.
Yeah, thanks. Councilmember Iyer and I have already spoken with staff about clarifying the language to make it as clear as possible about exactly what documentation is required moving forward. But the question before us tonight is with respect to this contract. And for me, the choice is quite clear. Only Major Contracting participates in the Department of Labor apprenticeship program. And as we've discussed at this table many times before, this improved training results in higher quality construction and better workplace safety. Only Major Contracting provides prevailing wages, health care, retirement benefits for all of their employees all of the time, not just when they're doing business in Ann Arbor. And based on our conversations, my understanding is that city staff remains neutral on this change. So because she couldn't be here tonight and because she did a lot of the heavy lifting on this, I'm going to conclude by sharing some remarks shared by Councilmember Iyer. And she said, quote, from a values perspective, Major clearly does the things that we value while the other contractor does not, though we always hope they will in the future. The ultimate decision rests with council. Oversight is part of our role as council members, otherwise these contracts wouldn't come to us for review and vote. In making this change, we are reaffirming our commitment to choosing the bidder that clearly provides the best value to the city, and we will clarify our RFPs so that the new bidder can better understand the exact documentation we are seeking in the future. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilmember Ackman.
Thank you. First, I want to start out by saying that I really appreciate the diligence of my colleagues and the scrutiny that's being applied. I think that's fair. Our best value policy is still relatively new, and we've already discovered that it needs refinement. I believe we made some refinements around this time last year. We as a body have set areas of importance, and then staff scores on those. We get the scores that the bids, based on the bids that are put forth, and we get the ones that score the highest. So I don't disagree with anything that Councilmember Medina has said regarding these two bids. Yet, as a council member, I don't feel comfortable getting in the business of changing out one contract from another from a set of bids. I don't want to try to figure out intent. I think if the policy needs tweaking, or even on the implementation, we should address that, but not by selecting a different contractor for a particular construction project. So again, I would just ask us to address the deficiencies, rather than doing this. So I won't be supporting this.
Further discussion? On the amendment, roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Watson on the amendment.
Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin? Absent. Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Iyer? Absent. Councilmember Ackman?
No.
Councilmember Briggs? Absent. Councilmember Cornell?
Yes.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Song?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Further discussion, the main motion is amended. All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. CA8, resolution to accept a community project funding grant and approve a grant agreement from the State of Michigan Department of Labor, Economic Opportunity for advancing the Wheeler Center Solar Park in the amount of $5 million. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Watson. Discussion, please, of CA8. Councilmember Dish.
I just wanted to say how pleased I am to see this, and I realize I didn't need to pull it to do that, but that will sink in now.
I'm very excited because community solar will supply 5 megawatts of energy to Ann Arbor and is a key piece of Ann Arbor's equitable decarbonization process. The city is working on low-income subscriptions for Ann Arbor residents to this soon-to-be-realized energy. There is no way for us to do community solar without partnering with DTE under current regulatory conditions. So if we value equity, we will need to work with DTE on this project, at least for the time being. So I wanted to underscore the importance of our being willing to make trade-offs that advance our core goals, such as equity. I want to say congratulations to the Office of Sustainability and Innovation, and also thank you to State Senator Jeff Irwin, State Representative Jason Morgan, and the entire Ann Arbor legislative delegation that helped us get this $5 million, which is going to help make this project financially viable.
I'd like to basically say what she said. I am very excited about this project moving forward. Ultimately, the solar field is going to be at or exceed 16 megawatts, which is outstanding. It should, with the acceptance of this grant, be able to get off the ground this fall, hopefully being online in 2025. It will be an important step forward as we look to accomplish our A20 goals. I would also like to echo the thanks to Senator Irwin and Rep. Morgan, as well as the balance of the delegation, who I also know as well, were supportive of this project. It is a crucial piece of clean energy infrastructure for Ann Arbor, and I'm excited that we're going to be moving it forward. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved with 8 council members present, all voting in the affirmative, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement. We now come to 2 public hearings. Public hearings are opportunities for members of the public to speak to council and the community about the specific subject matter of the public hearing. Speakers do not need to have signed up in advance in order to speak at a public hearing, but your speech must relate to the subject matter of the public hearing. That is to say, the specific item on the agenda to which the public hearing relates. Speakers in all instances, whether in the room or online, will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk or the time clock will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. When your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Public hearing number 1, resolution to approve fees for the fire department ambulance transport and lift assists and appropriate funding. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Here we do have a couple callers. Zach Damon, do you have a comment?
I do. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the mayor, and thank you to city council, and thank you to everyone present and also joining virtually. Today, I speak as a commissioner on the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues to express strong opposition to the resolution to approve fees for the fire department and ambulance transport and lift assists. And while I do understand the necessity of funding for public services, particularly those related to emergency medical response, I believe that the proposed fee structure will disproportionately impact individuals with disabilities and create an undue burden on this vulnerable population of our city. The proposed fee assessment, specifically the $255 fee for lift assists, raises significant concerns for individuals with disabilities who may require assistance in various settings. And I argue that this fee structure unfairly targets those who often rely on lift assists, particularly in private residencies and medical facilities. The potential financial implications could discourage individuals from seeking timely assistance, jeopardizing their health as well as their well-being. And so in particular, the policy's distinction between lift assists at businesses and private residences is indeed problematic. While we acknowledge the intent to exempt the first 6 lift assists in a 12-month period at private residences, any additional assists incur a fee, and this policy unfairly penalizes individuals with disabilities who may require frequent assistance due to chronic conditions or disabilities, making it difficult for them to afford the essential services. Furthermore, the administrative decision to send notices to the owner or management of the facility where the incident occurs poses challenges to the lift assist and to its private residences. This administrative approach may lead to confusion and delays and potential disputes, placing an additional burden on the individuals with disabilities who are already grappling with health challenges. The waiver imposition, while appreciated in theory, leaves room for subject judgment by the fire chief or the designee. The determination of whether the assessment was in the air or it is indeed mitigating the facts, which rely on the discretion of the commanding officer or potentially leading to inconsistent and unfair outcomes for the individual with
30
disability.
seconds.
So in conclusion, we urge the council to reconsider the proposed fee structure and its potential impact on the disability community. I believe there's a more equitable solution that can be reached through collaboration with disability advocates and community stakeholders to ensure that the emergency medical services remain accessible and affordable for all residents, regardless of their ability status. Thank you all for your attention and consideration.
Thank you.
Michelle Hughes, do you have a comment?
Yes, I am also opposed to charging fees for these services. It looks from the papers here that we wouldn't be getting very much money even if we would be disadvantaging disabled people. We'd be making things hard for them for the sake of just a couple $1,000s, and it doesn't seem like it's worth it to put people into danger and into sticking them in the bureaucratic depths. If this was going to be like a huge amount of money and we were going to have to sink a huge amount of money into helping people, then I guess that would, merit some more consideration. But we're talking about a whole bunch of Baroque administration of funding and, like the previous caller said, discouraging people from using these services. And what we get in return is not very much, like pocket change that we won't notice if we didn't have it. So, yeah, I think that we should choose a different way here and a more compassionate way where, and it looks like a lot of compassion went into this, but it kind of was starting from the assumption that, yeah, of course we're going to be charging people money for these services. And we just don't have to. I mean, we just don't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have other callers on the line with their hands up.
Seeing no one further, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, public hearing for the Stone School Road Sidewalk Special Assessment. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? Please.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Scott Munzel. I'm of counsel with the law firm of Deaver Ibiza, address 301 North Main. I represent 5 owners in a Pittsfield Township island proposed to have this sidewalk constructed. They are the Bowers, who live at 2853 Stone School, the Alberts at 2907, Luke Hart's at 2931, Bill Bond at 2941, and the Eisenhower Ventures, which is a vacant parcel. The 5 property owners basically object based on 3 reasons. First is necessity. They do not believe that the sidewalk in this particular location is needed. They live right there. They have eyes on the street. They have observed the use of the sidewalk on the west side of Stone School and note that it is very infrequently used, so they do not believe that there's really a need for a sidewalk on the east side. So we'd request the city to reevaluate that. Second, there's really no special benefit to these 5 property owners. Under Michigan law, to be valid, a special assessment improvement has to impart some kind of special or direct benefit to the property being assessed that is greater than the benefit to the public at large. And so in this particular situation, we do not believe that the benefit, if any, to these particular properties will be greater than the good to the public at large, and so therefore it would not satisfy one of the tests that is required for a SAD to be valid. Third, there's no proportionality between the proposed amount of the assessment and the benefit to the parcels. Again, to be legally valid, the assessment amount has to bear some proportionality to the increase in value to the property. Here, the proposed costs are, we believe, excessive, ranging from $16,000 up to $38,000 for a simple sidewalk, and that this proposed assessment is not proportionate to the benefit that these properties would receive, if any. So again, we don't believe that the SAD as proposed is legally supportable and would object to it on those grounds, and we'd request that council evaluate those costs and reduce them to an amount that would be legally supportable. 2 other quick points. One, we do believe the design could be changed to reduce the cost, to reduce the amount of grading that's required, and to also reduce the amount of tree removal that's been proposed. And then secondly, we did submit earlier today an objection letter such that the SAD would need 8 votes to be approved. We're happy to discuss these issues with the city staff, and I thank you for considering these points.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Brandon Dimcheff, do you have a comment?
Hi, it's Brandon Dimcheff. I live nearby in the neighborhood to the west of this. I have been personally annoyed by the absence of a sidewalk here before. There's also a school and a preschool on this block. There definitely should be a sidewalk here. I mean, I'm all about finding a compromise that works for everybody, but like, I don't know. The policy of the city is to build sidewalks, and that's a good policy, and we should definitely do it here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Luis Vasquez, do you have a comment?
Yes, greetings. I would also like to speak in support of putting a sidewalk on Stone School Road. I'm seeing some of the same arguments being used by the lawyers and the 5 homeowners, as was used to scuttle the Traver Road sidewalks to Northside School. As has been mentioned, there are schools right there on Stone School Road, and we need to protect our children. So, yeah, I'm in support of putting sidewalks in on Stone School. Thanks.
Thank you.
Adam Juskevich, do you have a comment?
Hi, this is Adam Druskevich in the 4th Ward, and I would also like to speak in favor of putting in sidewalks on Stone School. I don't think that we should allow a handful of adjacent property owners to scuttle the city's policy to build sidewalks along every street and fill every single sidewalk gap. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Hughes, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think that the city has a policy of building sidewalks, and the reason we have that policy is because we want to create a safe and connected safe and connected transport network for non-motorized travelers, and I think that the existence of a safe connected non-motorized network, that is of incalculable value to the people who live there. And that's not, the value of that is certainly greater than whatever amount of mere mortal money we're asking for. So, yeah, there's your value right there. Safe, connected public transit, or safe, connected, non-motorized transit network. And, yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Mary, I don't have any other callers for this item.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. A1, we have before us the regular session meeting minutes of January 22, 2024, moved by Councilmember Watson, seconded by Councilmember Radina. Discussion, please, of the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? The minutes are approved. DC1, resolution to approve a request from Hearsay Inc. for a new microbrewer, small winemaker, and small distiller liquor license and an entertainment permit to be located at 2350 West Liberty Street. Moved by Councilmember Ackman, seconded by Councilmember Cornell. Discussion of DC1. Councilmember Ackman.
Since this was referred by the Liquor Commission on which I sit, this is a new liquor license for Hearsay Inc., a craft microbrewer that has an improv performance theater located near Stadium on Liberty. So this is good news for fans and performers of improv comedy. We're basically approving a license to serve, for this establishment to serve beer brewed on site. They'll have live comedy shows, improv classes, and they're going to also operate an event space with an on-site food truck.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DC2, resolution to approve a request from AOC North Ann Arbor OPCO LLC for a new nonprofit continuing care retirement center liquor license issued under MCL 436.1545B2 to be located at 1901 Plymouth Road, DBA Atria Park of Ann Arbor. Moved by Councilmember Watson, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of DC2. Councilmember Watson.
This liquor license falls under a special category that applies to continuing care retirement centers and allows them to sell and serve alcohol for consumption by residents or their guests on the premises of the facility. The Liquor License Committee, on which I sit, was happy to approve this for Atria Park, which is on 1901 Plymouth Road.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. DS1, resolution to approve fees for the fire department ambulance transport and lift assists and appropriate funding. Moved by Councilmember Harrison, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of DS1. Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm concerned about the proposed fees for lift assistance and emergency services by our fire department. Some argue that residents can simply email or call to have these fees waived. But we know that navigating such processes is really straightforward, especially for those in vulnerable situations. There's a notion that insurance may cover these costs, but we must consider deductibles and copays, which can be substantial financial hurdles for many. And if assistance is required indoors, this may involve breaking down doors, adding to the cost and complexity. Some may argue that those requiring these services should be removed from their homes. This perspective negates the longstanding battle for seniors to age in place and for people with disabilities to live independently in their community. For someone to call for help in a vulnerable situation is challenging enough. The thought of being judged or facing financial penalties in those moments is not only distressing, but goes against the principles of empathy and support that should define our community. Rather than imposing fees, we should explore other avenues. Can we assist with home modifications like grab bars, railings, or ramps? Should we enhance our collaboration with organizations such as Jewish Family Services in their WISE program, Ageways Nonprofit Senior Services, and the Disability Network of Washtenaw, Monroe, and Livingston counties? Ann Arbor has always prided itself on being a leader in helping our most vulnerable. Let's not move backward by imposing financial barriers on essential services. I will not be supporting this tonight. I do recommend the fire department work with CODI, the Commission on Disability Issues, and our ADA coordinator to show their commitment to solutions that respect the dignity and independence of our residents. And I will add that my colleague, Councilmember Ghazi Edwin, who could not be here tonight, wanted me to share that she would also not be in support of this, but she can speak, she can reach out to the community with her own words going forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Dish.
Yeah, if it's, I'd like to ask two questions about this. So in the text of the resolution, it says, in an effort to recover cost for services, the city signed a professional service agreement with MediCount, and that in order for the city to bill for services, the city must adopt a fee structure. Another thing that it says in the text here, which I don't understand exactly, is that the city would bill individuals pursuant to the proposed fee structure. However, fee balance after Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance is waived. So I think I could have misunderstood, but I thought that we needed the fee structure in order to bill Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance, and that any remaining charge after we got paid from those things is waived.
Please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So there are really two separate matters as part of this. In an effort of efficiency, they were kind of proposed as a bundle, but they are two disparate things. The one is for almost a year now, the fire department, we've operated an ambulance service. So part A of this, or the first part of this, is operating as an ambulance service, operating as a licensed transport ambulance service, similar to what HVA has been doing for decades in the city. When we transport someone to the hospital, as of right now, we have been doing that pro bono and haven't been billing insurance. Similar to what HVA does, similar to what almost all other municipal fire departments in the state of Michigan that operate an ambulance service. That's the ambulance part of this. That's where we would work with MediCount, which was the company that we had the professional services agreement with. And that would basically be that compassionate billing. We would bill insurance. If we don't, if it's not covered, then we would write that off. So that's kind of the first bundle of this, and that's in alignment with other practices of other communities. The lift assist, that's a kind of a separate one. That's been something that we've been dealing with for quite some time with the fire department. Since we are going to be going through this process of fee adoption for ambulance fees, it just seemed that this was probably a time to address both, because we were going to have to go through this administrative process. One of the larger issues with with lift assist is there are numerous facilities in the city of Ann Arbor that have 24/7 staff that are mainly senior care. They are, to be very upfront, I think, abusing city services by calling our firefighters to be doing lift assist for patients that are paying a very expensive service to be there, and they're wanting our staff to take that liability of lifting people back into bed as opposed to the nursing staff that's there. And so essentially we are, in those instances for several of the facilities that are listed there, we're kind of subsidizing as a city these very expensive for-profit corporations. So that is one abuse factor that we were attempting to address with this. The other part that we are dealing with is for Huron Valley Ambulance. We are routinely getting called where there is a patient that is scheduled for a medical transfer. So this is not a 911 situation. This is a patient that has a medical condition that is going to a doctor's appointment. Generally, these are bariatric patients. They're bariatric patients that would require more than a two-person ambulance crew to help transport. So they call, so we're taking a fire company, we're taking them out of service to go meet the ambulance, to load the patient to an ambulance, and then that ambulance takes that patient to a doctor's appointment, and then 3-4 hours later, we're getting called back to assist with that in reverse. It's really my argument that Huron Valley Ambulance is operating as a ambulance transport service, and again, we are subsidizing that service where they should be using their own staff to do that because they're billing the patient for that. We don't receive any reimbursement. So those two were really the primary, the assisted care facilities and the scheduled transport, which are not 911 calls. These are stable patients. They're literally going for a doctor's appointment. And this is impacting the availability of our companies because they're going out of service to do this. The 6 for lift assist, certainly there was no intent to be disproportionate against disabled members of the community. From our experiences and looking at comparable for other communities, that seemed to be a fair number where if we're going there over 6 times in a year, then that's a bit of a tipping point. We are routinely working with the social service agencies that are mentioned. Sustainability, as they've had our Office of Sustainability within the city, they've had funding at times to work on that to try to make modifications to homes. So none of this has been trying to, again, disproportionately impact members of, or disabled members of the community. Certainly a resident that's been paying taxes, they have a medical emergency, we want to go in, and I shouldn't even say medical emergency because the only time this would be billed if there wasn't an injury. We do have abuse with this. We do get called at 2 o'clock in the morning because someone fell and there might be a caregiver there, but they're for various situations. So again, there was an attempt for really all 3 on the lift assist to target basically abuse of the system. That's really where we were going for. So, but again, there are 2 separate issues at hand.
Councilor Medina.
Thank you. Given that we heard from the chair of our Commission on Disability Issues tonight, I guess I was wondering did staff work at all with them? Was there any discussion with Kodai about how we might be able to adjust this or work with them around?
No, and that was alone. That was a miss on our end. So we're welcome to do that.
And I guess I wonder to that effect if there's perhaps an opportunity for us to postpone this so that we could have those conversations and work with our Disability Commission. Is that something you would be open to, I suppose?
I'd certainly take any direction from council.
Mayor,
please.
Are you able to separate the items out, or do they all need to be together?
No, that would be tremendous, and in fact, if we're able to do that, that's absolutely what I would encourage, of let's split the ambulance transport from the lift assist. Again, the ambulance transport, that is industry best practice. That's very along the lines of what we do with, if they're transported by Huron Valley Ambulance, they're going to get a bill. So we're doing nothing different than what has been experienced in this community for decades.
Councilor Ackman.
I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to be sure. And you know I'm a fan of the fire department ambulance. So I just want to be straight. It's basically that no one chooses which ambulance service when they need an ambulance transport to the hospital. They call and they get the one that's closest by that has the resources that are needed, right? So they might get Huron Valley and they might get Ann Arbor Fire Department.
Correct. And One of the reasons that the fire department got into the ambulance service is because of staffing issues with Huron Valley. What's happened is that if they are at zero status and don't have any units available, then we transport. So you're right, it is a complete roll of the dice if someone gets Huron Valley. So right now, if someone's fortunate to get the city fire ambulance, there's no bill.
Okay.
If they were to get HVA, there is going to be a bill. This makes things a little bit more consistent. And again, we are doing the compassionate billing. If someone has good health insurance, we'll take whatever that payment was. If not, it's wrote off at that point.
All right, thanks for the clarification.
I don't have a copy of the. I don't have my computer with me, and so I don't have a copy of the resolution. Is it easily severable to fees?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dohoney?
So that everything's clear, why don't we come back with a separated resolution? Then you can entertain the items separately in support of what the chief is saying for third parties to be using the city. I'm not talking about individuals, but for third party private sector companies to be using the city to supplement what they're doing and they're getting paid. That shouldn't be. The second part is the reason it's coming to you the way it is we're off cycle when we brought on the ambulance. Normally, all of our fee structure comes at one time. We weren't able to do that with this item, which is why you're hearing it separately.
Surely we could administratively separate these things out. Yeah, I guess it's a question, are we postponing for one meeting or two, because we do want the opportunity to engage with CODI?
It would be very easy for us to have the transport on the next. I would support splitting these entirely. I don't know that we're going to have the chance to work with CODI between now and the next meeting. We would 100% be able to have the ambulance transport singularly by the next meeting.
Yeah.
Councilmember Harrison.
My request would be to, if we're going to postpone this, it's got to be postponed in enough time for you to have a meeting with CODI. So it would have to be after, and I'm not sure when the next CODI meeting is, but that's, if we're going to postpone this, that has to.
If this is a two-meeting postponement, is that a challenge for? Is that just another month of not billing?
That's just another month of not billing to just provide to eliminate confusion on this. We'd probably bring them back separately, just regardless. So there's just not confusion on the two.
Ms. Boudry?
The Commission on Disability Issues will meet on February 21st.
All right. Well, let's then perhaps, Chief, if this doesn't disrupt matters too much, perhaps we have a postponement to the first meeting in March proposed. Is there, with the understanding that it may come back. It will have to come back to the agenda as is, but there will be, in all likelihood, supplemental replacement resolutions that can then be moved and amended to at the floor. So is there a motion for postponement to the first meeting in March? Moved by Councilmember Harrison, second by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, postponement. All in favor? Opposed? It's postponed.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. McDonald, do we have the pleasure of a closed session today?
We do not.
We have before us the clerk's report of communications, petitions, and referrals. May I have a motion, please, to approve the clerk's report? Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Ackman. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. Mr. McDonald, are there communications today from our city attorney?
There are not.
We now have public comment overflow time. Our next speaker is, the rules the same, Matthew Bossart, my apologies.
Hello,
My name is Matt Bossart. I'm in the 5th Ward, and I'm also in the 5th year of a PhD program where I study electric power systems. I want to first state my support for the city to conduct a Phase 2 feasibility study, as you've heard repeatedly tonight, for a municipal electric utility as outlined by Ann Arbor for Public Power. There are many decisions that we will all make leading up to 2030 to try and meet the 820 goals, but also beyond that, which will impact how we address climate change, how we're able to mitigate the effects of climate change while simultaneously delivering reliable and economic electricity. And for me, I think the key question to ask is who we want to be making and influencing those decisions. In the current system, these decisions are either controlled or heavily influenced by DTE, which is an investor-owned utility and is designed to maximize its own profits. I believe that the incentives of DTE are fundamentally contradictory to the 820 mission that the city has previously adopted. Establishing a municipal electric utility is the only way to ensure that these decisions, and there will be many in the coming years, are made exclusively by the city and people of Ann Arbor and are completely decoupled from DTE's influence. The decision to pursue a municipal electric utility is obviously an important one for the city, and for that reason, regardless on your belief of the best solution, I believe it is absolutely warranted to have additional analysis, which we would get from the Phase 2 study. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councilor Cornell, second by Councilor Harrison. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.